My name is Eshael Johnson, and the name of my business is Iskira Soma Fitness.
Nice. Iskira stoma. So
Yes.
what does Iskira mean? Like, is it like a Greek phrase, Greek term?
Look at you. Yes, 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 yes,
Yes.
yes. It is. So, when I was trying to figure out what to name my business, I wanted it to have some, um, homage to Joseph Pilates and his love of everything with the Greek gymnasiums and so forth. And then I also didn't want it to be commonplace, kind of like my name. Like I didn't
Yes.
want to name Eshael Johnson Pilates because people can't even say Eshael, but then I said Iskira. But
Yes.
Iskira in Greek means strong, and then
Yes.
soma is Latin for body. And
Yes.
then really when I first named it, it was just Iskira Soma. And I was like, well, for people that may not want to try to figure out or look it up, let
Hmm.
me at least give them a clue and put fitness at the end. So
Yes.
it's
Yes.
Iskira Soma Fitness.
Right. So why did you choose fitness instead of Pilates at the end?
One, because in my 30,000 foot long distance goal of opening my own studio, I thought that it would be useful to have other modalities of exercise or movement. I
Yes.
feel like, especially the more that I learn about Pilates, it's a foundation for everything. Um, and
Hmm.
so if you have physical therapy, that there's Pilates exercises and physical therapy. There are components and elements of Pilates that are useful for strength training. And
Yes.
what I have found in my own personal practice is when I employ my Pilates principles, all six of them, then I don't get hurt as much when I'm lifting because I
Yes.
used to get hurt all the time. It was my
Really.
shoulder, it was my hip, it was my knee. And some of that has to do with my trainers because they push and push and push and I like an idiot follow instead of saying I don't really think I can do that. I'm like, oh
Mm.
yeah, your
Yes.
mind takes over and
Yes.
says you can do it, and my body's like, are you on crack? um,
Yes. Yes.
but when I remember those things, whether it's roll your shoulders back, your abs in and up, hug your midline, those things they actually help, and I don't get hurt. So I was thinking fitness, I could partner with other people. I could have like this whole kind of like wellness experience in
Yes.
one place. You don't have to go here to do your physical therapy and here to do
Hmm.
your personal training. It could all be under one roof. So that's what I'm
Yes.
shooting for.
Yeah, yeah. No, and so do you have your own space right now?
I don't because I think
Okay.
I had told you I have a day job.
Okay. Yes.
So my day job, I work for the federal government. I do policy communications.
Yes. Yes.
So this is Pilates is kind of like when I finally decide that I'm going to stop working a 9 to 5, which I don't know when that's going to be, then I will be like everything Pilates. But I'm transitioning little by little,
Yes.
and I haven't decided I was going to let go yet because I've been
Hmm.
this policy communications person for so much of my adult life. I don't, I'm not, I'm trying to let go, but it's
Yeah. You don't
hard
have to.
because that,
It's one of those things, right? Like, there you go.
there we
You
go.
back there? Okay. Yes. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I hear you on that. Like, there's that transitional phase, and I always kind of, I have friends who are like hate their job or they're kind of transitioning or they have a business idea, and I was like, if you can do your job well, like almost like do your job in your sleep, start your next
Mhm.
hobby, start your next chapter of life, and then when the time to transition comes, you can just let go of one and just embrace the other fully. Like you're that's the way to do it.
Yeah. And I have great support. Like I don't have to, you hear horror stories about people that start their business and they're like at poverty level because they're trying to struggle, start their business. And I admire those people. I just don't want to be one of them.
Yes.
But in the meantime, I have great people that are supporting me either by being a listening ear or like where I work, the studio that I work in, she just gave me the keys and said, go. She's like,
Yes.
whatever you need,
It's
I talked to
amazing.
her about, I talked to her about her studio and how she got started, and she pointed me in different directions. So my master trainer knows, I saw Tara on there, knows Tara, and so people give you ideas like what type of equipment or why this equipment. Well, you could start on this, but
Hmm.
or maybe you should sign up for this class because you'll learn so much. But
Yes.
it's nice when it's a community. And so when I finally do open my doors, I think that I will be prepared not only with the knowledge, the technical training, but also the tips and tricks that you would only know if you were kind of like in this space. And then
Yes.
I have the friendships and the relationships, and I they're not going to let me fall. So
Yes.
I won't be the starving Pilates studio owner.
That's wise, right? Like, and you're laying a great foundation. And I've been so much on that mentoring tip right now in the different capacities, like not even necessarily like a formal apprenticeship, sign out of life and stay with me 24 hours a day type relationship, as much as like that peer mentoring. Like, this person is at a similar phase. I found this person. I took this class. I got a discount on this equipment. Talk to this person. Like, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
All of those pieces are, like you said, community. That is true community. And that's how we all grow and get better.
Right. So you said I could ask you questions.
Absolutely. Fire
So
away.
one of the things that I want to incorporate into my business is to reach out to have more men do Pilates. So I'm always excited when I read or hear about men and athletes specifically doing Pilates, and I'm like, yes, they get it because, as you know, because you're already nodding, if you say to a guy, do Pilates, they go, oh, it's like yoga, or oh, I can't do that because I am man, hear me roar. And I'm just like, I love it when I only do it a little bit, I will say. But I love to get a guy in the studio and just say, okay, well, you know, give them just the ab series to do and
Hmm.
watch. And then it's a good thing we have masks now because now you can't see my face when I go, ha ha ha. But like, tell, tell me, like,
Yes.
what are you doing? Like, it's a little bit easier because people say, oh, well, Martin does it. So, okay, at least I'll try it. But do you have to struggle to get men to try to even try Pilates or to hear you out? Or are they more likely to come because they see that you're an athlete and you do Pilates as well?
I feel like people are inclined to try it because I do it, because it
Mhm.
takes like, if you as a woman are saying, they're like, well, it's for women. You're a woman. You're telling me to do it. You can do the
Yeah.
splits. I can't do the splits, so I'm not going to try Pilates. And they just kind of just dismiss it at that, right? So I mean, once you get them on, if you can get them in the room, if you can get them to feel it,
Mhm.
then that makes such a huge difference. I've heard so many stories of women who have had, their significant others doing Pilates, and they bring their husband in, and then the
Mhm.
husband loves it, and eventually the wife drops off and the husband keeps going,
Yes.
right?
We've had, yep, we've had that.
Yeah, that happens so much because once they feel it, they're hooked. So if you can get them in the door, it's like an old school sales tactic. If you can get them to just give it a test drive, they'll most likely
Mhm.
buy it.
Yeah.
You
It's
know,
so it's
so
so it's so beneficial. And then I think too, like again, this in your experience in social work, also like in psychology, you got to meet people where they're at. So whatever appeals to them. So sometimes it's letting folks know the history that, Pilates is not just the exercise program, it's the name of the person, and he was a man,
yes,
and
yep.
he was a boxer, and he really created it really for men,
Hmm.
and women just kind of took over because of where he ended up when he immigrated to the United States.
Sure.
But, some men I've gotten to, at least try it once you tell them the history of it. And they go,
Yes.
oh, okay. And then, like you said, others, they try because their wives or significant others work the crap out of them. And they finally said, fine, okay. And it is interesting to have the men continue because I think they see like the challenge because, you can't do those advanced exercises if you don't have at least some brute
Some
strength.
foundational. Yes.
Yeah. So they're like, oh, wait, you mean I can hang upside down and do like 15 pull-ups? And that appeals to them. Pull-up
Yes.
is familiarity. So they'll
Yes.
do that.
Yes.
So then I had another question.
Actually, I have another part to in my answer on
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
actually, I'm going to read Amit's answer here too. It says, give them an offer of 3 classes so you don't have to quote unquote buy them in one class. You know what I mean? Like, don't feel like you have to like really just pressure and sell them on the one
Yeah.
class. Let them experience it, right? And this is the other piece too. And like with the 2 guys here in the room, let me know, guys, if you agree with this. Don't kill them on their first workout.
No.
And I'm like, that's serious, right? I mean, because like a lot of times you think, okay, well, he can bench press and he can squat, so I'm going to crush him with this Pilates workout so we can see Pilates is tough too. If you go the other route of making them feel good, if you make them like make their hips open more than it was before, or give them more shoulder mobility than they've ever had in the last, make them like able to touch their toes by the time the session's done, that will sell them just as much as making them drip sweat 5 minutes in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So if you, for guys, a lot of times we're inclined to go towards killing them or killing them softly.
I see that.
Right. But and this is the way I usually do, is like give them some exercises that are going to really, really crush them, but do that early enough in the workout that you can kind of repair them as well. So they walk out feeling taller and stronger. They forget about the moment where you were killing them, but they also remember the fact that they have a better gait than when they left, than when they came in, right? So there's a sense of finding that sweet spot. Like I cringe when I hear women say, I just crush my strong guys when they come in. Sure, you can't really hurt them, like you can't injure them, but you also want to give them a appreciation of the mobility component, not just the strength component to Pilates, right? So, because like most guys can crush the strong stuff. Like leg circles hurt for me, like teasers don't hurt.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So that's the thing for me. That's just me personally, but tell them, I'm sorry, reading Emma's comment, tell them something they didn't know about their body and posture. Right. If you make it super educational throughout too, we appreciate being educated on our bodies, and we appreciate the measure, like weight is appealing because it's measurable. I did 200 pounds. This week I did 205 pounds on my bench press. Next week is 215. If you can help people to understand, okay, well, you had difficulty with your roll-up, and this week the roll-up was easier, or you had difficulty with this, and now this week this is easier. When you can give them those moments where they can celebrate progress within it, guys or girls, like, men or women, we come back because we're recognizing progress, right?
That's
so
right.
It's more on us and how we educate and present it. So anyway, that's my thought. Just don't crush people on it. Like, let them feel good.
No.
So, yeah,
There's not a continual crushing,
yeah.
but and like I said, it's different with everybody, right? You have to meet the person where they're at. So there are some that come in and they're asking for it. They're like, yeah, throw it, throw whatever your best shot at me. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But then there are others that, I've had, and they're like, well, I don't feel this. And I'm like, well, text me tomorrow.
Yes.
and let's revisit that. But yeah, everybody, men and women, it's always exciting. So like when you says like, what is my message for my clients? It is always exciting when they come back or they text me and say, I dropped my keys and I just bent right down and picked them right back up. Like,
yes.
For a lot of people, that's easy peasy. But if they were having a problem with that, or I have a couple of clients, they want to teach me what they learned. They're like, I was working out with so-and-so and look at what she taught me. And I'm like, and it's kind of like having kids. It's like,
yes.
Okay, show me. And they're
yes.
like, look, I can do it. And I'm like, yes, you can. good for you.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, so now can we go back to our regularly scheduled program? But
Right.
you know, and that's so that actually is like kind of like my passion. I love it when they get it. And I think,
Yes.
you know, day job, in my day job, like my first like professional career was teaching, sort of,
Hmm.
you know, educating, doing management training.
Yes.
So like my first real profession was teaching leaders in the court system how to be better managers. That was
Okay.
challenging.
Yes.
But when they got it,
Yes.
yeah, because they don't like to be told that they don't know what they think they know. And
Right.
certainly somebody like me couldn't tell them because I don't have a law degree. So
Hmm.
I wasn't very smart. But that was challenging. But when they got it, and they were excited to see that it worked, and you get the notes and the letters about, oh my god, I tried that concept that we learned in real life, it worked. So I
Yes.
think that was when I realized that's what I like. So I
Hmm.
like the mentoring. I like being the Jiminy Cricket. I tell my team in my day job, I'm the person that's talking to you in your ear. I'm sitting on your shoulder and telling
Yes.
you how to navigate. I don't need to be, I've already done my time. I don't need to
Hmm.
be out in front. So coming into the studio, I kind of feel again, I get to be like Jiminy Cricket again,
Yes.
where, you know, especially if they already kind of know, you know,
Hmm.
the system. Now I get to tweak, and I'm like, so
Yes.
now let's try it if you rap. Let's try it with a weight. Let's try, you
Yes.
know, trying to help them see that they can be better, faster, stronger,
Ye-
$6 million man,
Yes.
whatever.
Yeah.
And then they leave and they're like, oh my god, I did it. I'm like, yes, you did.
Yes. And that Jiminy Cricket thing is like that goes into the way that they drive, right? Because now you're in the ear saying engage your core, like sit upright, like pick up your groceries this way, play with your kids, pick them up. Like you mean like it translates not just on the mat, but how do you, like move soil when you're doing gardening in the backyard. Like that's all that stuff is all that same voice is going to be in your ear because of what you learned in the studio, right? So yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
that's
second question for me.
my second question. So,
Do you actually have it written down there? So
I do. I
nice.
told you I'm an INTJ. This is how I move.
All right.
So, my second question actually was my third question, but we said something and it made me think about it again. So you were an athlete, ran track, you played football, strength training. So when you started learning Pilates, which is a whole different, I swear to God, a whole different language.
Yes.
How how did that go? Like um how did you um learn that language? Like because that was I was trying to figure out from my my basketball playing, my cheerleading, my coaching, my weight training. I was
Yes.
trying to find a parallel so
Yes.
that I could say, okay, this is like, or this sounds like, or this remind, and it was like there's no other real language. And now, like next week, I'm going to jump into gyrotonics,
Mm.
and so, but there's some Pilates in that. So
Yes.
that's going to be a smoother sail. So
Yes.
I'm just kind of curious. Like I'm done now, but I'm like, God, I wish I had somebody to talk to tell me how to make this easier.
I know it. I know because it's like the analogy of it, like I'm in Canada and the second language is French, right? So I took like grade 5 French and then dropped it. So if I hear French, I can figure out what they're saying. But
Mhm.
if you want me to speak Japanese, there's not a chance, right? Like I think that like Pilates is like learning Japanese when you think you know French or Spanish or something, right? Like it's just a completely different
Completely
movement
different.
language.
Yes.
And I learned it in two different places in my life. One, when I was an athlete who was injured and realized that Pilates was something that was helping me to not end up back at a chiro's office every week. I found the corrective exercise component of it when I needed it for my body. And then later down the road, when I was taking courses, I was a personal trainer, and I thought that because Pilates helped me in my body, this would be a great tool to have in my toolbox as a personal trainer to set me apart. You know, say I'm a trainer and I know Pilates and I'm a guy and I'm a visible minority. Like I figured that was all marketable stuff for me.
Absolutely.
Because I think, you know, there's how many black male Pilates teachers that were former athletes that were not dancers are out there, right?
That's a whole
So
nother thing. Yes.
right, so recognizing the niche-ness of what I was doing, I wanted to learn it. So I understood what it meant from a corrective exercise piece back in the day, and then I started to appreciate the performance side of it as I dove deeper into it. So taking a full comprehensive cert and then taking an apprenticeship and understanding classical Pilates, it was all that stuff made sense to me as an athlete when I got to like boiling it right down to the authentic, you know, the repertoire and understanding the system and the exercise and that sort of thing. So I don't know, like I got it just because it's performance. I got it because it was just another language of enhancing how my body can perform. So it was, I don't know, it was a different language, but it was still getting me to the same place. So it would be like if you went to a doctor for an injury and then you went to a traditional medicine doctor, like they're doing stuff you've never heard of, but it's still going to improve your range of motion in your shoulder. So I'll just go with it, even though I don't understand it. So it's been a journey of understanding it more and more and more. And yeah, like we're white belts forever, right? Like we're
Yes.
always figuring this stuff out. So I could have another 20 years under my belt of teaching Pilates and I will still be learning stuff and having those moments of like push from your heel and being like, oh, like, you know what I mean? Like,
Oh,
yes.
yeah. They in my studio, bless their hearts, they, you know, sometimes they tolerate me. They're like, wait, did you train with your master trainer? I'm like, yes. They're like, oh, you learned something new. I'm like, yes, want to see it. Or you know, they burst out giggling at me because, you know, I'm like, if they've accomplished something, then I get so very excited, like I said before. But also you watch and I just get so mesmerized by what their bodies are doing. And they're like, am I
Yes.
doing it wrong? I'm like, no, did you know? Blah, blah. So we,
Yes.
yeah, like have a pause in the class
Mhm.
and we talk about like what I'm seeing.
Yes.
And so then, you know, which is why mirrors are helpful. That's another story. But you know, what I'm seeing, did you know this? Or then there's a teaching moment of, well, it's an old Groucho Marx, you know, joke, right? Doctor, when I do this, it hurts. Okay, don't do that. That's
Yeah.
but that's not the answer. It's
Right.
okay, let's try to figure it out
Hmm.
together. And I find that, you know, yes, I know it's a business. Yes, you know, actually the object of the game is to get you from the hundreds to standing in 55 minutes. But I feel like I'm helping them outside of the studio, like you said, in their everyday life. If, you know, they come to me with something and I can say, well, the next time you do this, try this.
Yes.
And then they do it, which also helps the business because it brings them back. Because they're like, she was able to
Exactly.
help me with that. Let
Yep.
me bring something else, or let me tell my friend, you know, this is who you should go to if you need help.
Yes. Well, you know, and that is the piece that good trainers understand is that you're not just giving somebody a workout, you're educating them on what a good workout looks like. So they can now take that back within their own body and understand if I was in personal training, I can make you sweat with burpees for 55 minutes, or I can make you, you know, or I can give you 15 exercises in the hour and we just go, or we could take one exercise and unpack it and give you movement prep and do all these different things. And then you're like neuromuscularly fatigued and sweaty and just lost. And we've done one exercise.
One.
Right. So there's a sense of doing that with our people, with our students, where if we're educating them along the way while we're teaching them, then they understand what a good workout looks like. Then they understand where they need to be in space to do certain things and not just going by rote memory, but they're getting an education on their bodies at the same time. And that's great training, right? So it's weird. That's that yeah, there's that conflict between educating them so much that they don't need us, but then the irony is that they'll keep coming back even though we give them enough to do it on their own.
Yeah, but yes, agreed. And I do have a teacher trainer that said you don't want to put yourself out of business by teaching them everything you know. But like we just said, we're continually learning.
Hmm.
So will they ever catch up? And then what, how many exercises are there? Like 500 exercises? I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure I at best know about 300 of them, and that's it, because I guess the rest of them are super advanced or archival. But like they won't be able to do them. And like you were saying, unpacking the exercises, you can unpack the 100 and you just starting. You
Hmm.
know, that's the very first exercise. And
Right.
if you start with the lifting of the arms and the lifting of the head and then the marching and then the pelvic, I'm like, you've done 7 things and you have not even done the 100.
Right.
So I just feel like there's so many different layers,
Hmm.
and that's why even when you get to the advanced level, it doesn't get any easier. Like the
Hmm.
longer you do Pilates, the more you learn that you don't know, or that your body is not balanced, or
Yes.
you've been doing this compensatory
Movement.
movement,
Yes.
all
Hmm.
along. You're like, oh crap, I didn't even know I did that. So you go back to the beginning. You always
Yes.
go back to the beginning. You go back to the mat.
Yes.
So
Right. And that's a strange thing to say as an educator, isn't it? We don't teach what we need to teach that client. Don't we teach what we need to teach that client in that moment? Right. Exactly. Yes. So that's yeah, it is interesting, that dialogue, right? Because we are always learning, and yeah, and everyone's neat, and the people, like my runners used to say all the time, like you don't know who's going to show up at the start line of the race, right? Like your body can feel one way and feel great that way one day, and a different day it feels completely different, right? It's the same thing. A person who we know can do a certain exercise may not be able to do it that day, so we're teaching to the person in front of us, and that person in front of us can be different than the last time. So we're always in this new phase of learning, teaching, educating, observing, being curious, like all that stuff. um, and then the other part too, what you were going to say earlier was about advanced exercises. Like you can almost say advanced in quotations, because your strong athletic guy can come in and you can throw an advanced exercise at him and it's light work because he's strong. And then there could be a basic exercise that is extremely difficult because of a limited range of motion, or vice versa. You could have someone who's super bendy who can do some amazing advanced exercise because it's not challenging them, even if they are using their powerhouse or not, you know what I mean? And then, you know what I mean? So like there's that advanced beginner intermediate dialogue kind of goes out the window to some degree as well, depending on who you're teaching, right?
That's true. It depends. It depends. Yeah, the body in front of you. So, right. It's interesting because, like, in general, you have this progression. You have beginner, intermediate, advanced, and as I went through my comprehensive, we got to some advanced exercises, and teacher trainers like, I wasn't expecting you to be able to do that, and I was like, why not? Because you couldn't do the beginner. And I'm like, well, but that required me to like have flexibility in my hamstrings, which I don't have. But this requires me to be able to do a push-up, or it requires me to be able to pull my body weight up. I can do that. But
Mm-hmm.
you want me to do a split? Yeah, that advanced Russian split thing on the reformer. That's not a pretty look.
Yeah.
That's not good on
Yeah. Yep. Yes. So I was going to ask you a question about one of your posts here, a few of your posts actually. I love how you have a lot of like women's empowerment stuff. Like the one more recent comment was about fixing someone's crown without making it public that it's off, or something to that. Can you explain that and what that means to you?
So I think it was the one about be the woman that fixes another woman's crown without telling everyone that you did so. Um,
Yes.
I think
Without telling the world that it was crooked.
that it
Yes.
was crooked, right? Oh, isn't that's how they say? Isn't that messy?
Mm.
Uh,
Yes.
that, so it's kind of like similar to being like Jiminy Cricket. I want I try to be helpful
Yes.
and supportive, and I don't need the world to know that it was me. Like, you don't owe me anything for me willingly sharing whatever it is that I know. And I don't know but what I know. But, if so I have, like I said, my day job. I have a
Hmm.
team that I lead. I want, if they mess up, okay. But we're family, so women,
Yes.
we're family by virtue of the fact that we're all women. We should be supportive of each other. We should share our knowledge, our resources, be uplifting, because we carry a lot, and we carry it the best that we can. So if I can take it off, or while you're running, think about it, if you could see literally a person with a crown on their head, and they're carrying, as women, the full-time job, the kids, the
Yes.
cleaning of the house, whatever they're carrying, and they're struggling, they're trying to keep that crown straight, and I come up
Hmm.
behind and I'm like, wait, hold still, you're good. That person is still standing on their own 2 feet within her own accomplishments. It doesn't matter
Yes.
what I did. I'm trying to
Mm.
be helpful. And so that's, what they call the humble brag. You ever hear of that? The humble
Yes.
brag?
Yes. Yes.
I'm so against the humble brag. Like, oh yeah, she did that, but I was the one that, gave her start. Or yeah, she did that, but oh yeah, that's messy. I don't like
Hmm.
that. If you
Mm.
want to help me, help me. If you
Yes.
can't or you don't want to, don't. Either way, it's okay. But it's the right motive. What is your
Yes.
motive behind helping somebody? Is it because you want to be helpful? You want to see them grow? You want to see them succeed? Or is it for your own glory? It's not always about us. It's not always about us. I know that's hard to believe. It's not always about us.
Yes.
That's that.
Yes. I love that. So, yeah, because I think about those times that we see things, and it's to, like you said, to fix that crown, or practical application is to like privately have that
Mm.
conversation as opposed to
Yeah.
publicly, correct them or like provide your input, and what I mean, that sort of thing. It's like those are those pivots that we do in love. Like that shows what your true motive is. Are you trying
Right.
to elevate yourself on the back of that person, or are you still trying to keep that person elevated?
Exactly. Exactly. So that part is important to me too. And I see all these great folks, whether they're on your podcast or in the social media space, and I'm like, wow, I would like to talk with them, but there's no really no time. But I appreciate these forums that you provide and others, to try and keep conversations moving, to try to educate people, and share. Like every time your podcast comes on, you have an aha moment, or you're talking about something that you discovered, or like today, the book, which I think is, I didn't know about Frankie Fitness. I think that's
Yeah.
cool. That's
Yes.
really cool. Um, and I was thinking about my grandkids, and because they were like, uh, they call me Mama Monte. That's another story for another day. But they wanted to know, like, what, I took them to the studio. They're like, what's that? And so I let them play on it, and I was watching. I'm like, oh dear, this one's a little imbalanced. But to get the children really involved early, and not be
Yes.
like the necessarily the soccer mom, where oh, you've got to go to gymnastics every day from 5 a.m.,
Mhm.
because all children aren't built for that. And I don't
Right.
know that that's necessary. I'm more of a be balanced type
Yes.
person. So, I think my parent, I didn't do gymnastics. I did dance for
Yes.
years. I did, orchestra for years, and then, the other sports things. But I think I learned from my parents, you do start early, go
Mhm.
outside and play.
Yes.
I played with the boys, climbing trees and riding my big wheel and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right? Remember the big wheel and the
I
green
remember
machine?
Big Wheel and the Green Machine. Yep.
All right. So we did that, but then I had the
Like the
was
organized programs?
the organized sports and learning how to play well with others. And so I think it's balanced. But my grandkids, they spend a lot of time in front of their computers, and now it kind of sucks because the pandemic, that's where they
That's
have to be
school.
in order to learn.
Right.
But it's kind of frightening that the 5 and the 7-year-old can't seem to do like a roll up. I mean, they were literally struggling. I'm like, wait, when I was your age, roll up, roll over, backflip, kick over,
Yes.
cartwheels, we were doing all of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't, that just kind of bugs me.
Yep.
So I don't know. I don't know what to do about that.
Yeah, it's you bring them back in the studio, just cut them loose. Like just
Yeah.
let them play, let them fall. Like we bubble wrap our kids too, right? That's the other part of it. Like our kids don't know how to fall, they don't know how to get hurt and get up anyways. Like
Yes.
that's I'm sorry, I raise boys too, right? So if there's no blood, if there's no hospital trip,
You're good.
we're
Yeah.
good, right? So
I know, I know. Well, see, yeah, I'm a boy mom. One of my, and I'm done. But he has 2 girls,
yes.
and I'm just like, oh, the trauma and the drama that sometimes goes into that, and I'm
Hmm.
like, oh, I'm not ready for that. But I think that I, I, I can't fix everything, right? So
Yes.
I
That's
I
good that you
try
recognize that. Yes.
have to let that go. The control freak in me has to let that go. But I do, try to share and send things that encourage them to move and
Yes.
play and run. Because you can be a nerd and also be active and healthy. And so that's what I've kind of been trying to teach them, because we're all about smart girls. Smart girls are pretty girls too.
Hmm.
And that's important to be in your books, because that's what's going to carry you
Right.
as you get older. But I trying to teach them the balance of, you can be the nerd, but you can also go outside and play too. 30
Yes.
minutes going outside is not going to make you fail your test or whatever. So
Hmm. Hmm.
anyway,
Yeah. So
I
that was a nice segue or tangent with Frankie Fitness. Like that's exactly what he's about, right? And the book is amazing. He has there's 4 in the series, so like check it out and get like this, like one on meditation, one on yoga, and the newest one is on Pilates. And it's just beautifully written. Like if I was to just say like make sure it says this, make sure it says this, make sure it points to this, like all of that stuff is in there in such a little concise way. And then there's a bunch of exercises at the back too. So like there's maybe like 18 or 19 of the exercises, and just the simplest cues to get them moving safely and independently. So that's a great launch pad for every other type of movement.
guess what the girls are getting.
Yes, exactly. Our podcast was so funny too, Michelle. Like he's great, and he's such a like Zen guy that we talked about just finding our way and just learning your passions, being committed to just your educating yourself and letting that dictate your career path and way, and how to motivate our clients. We've gotten a bunch of stuff, and just how the book came about. And he doesn't have kids too, right? Like he's just passionate about everyone moving. So it's quite inspiring. He's a good guy. He's a really, really good guy. So Charm
I was
City PT, and yeah.
I wrote it down, when you had mentioned it. I'll check that out.
Hmm.
So
I forgot
I,
to ask you.
go ahead.
Yes, how did you find Pilates? Like right out the gate. Like how did you actually find Pilates?
Um, um, it's kind of interesting, kind of not. I think so. I think I found Pilates and didn't know that I found it, because I got hurt a lot, as I told you, and was
Hmm.
always in rehab for something. Usually my knee, my IT band. For a minute, I thought I was gonna run. My dad told me a long time ago I was built for endurance, not for speed.
Hmm.
So I tried to prove him wrong. That didn't work so good. Um, so they give you exercises that I now know are Pilates based.
Okay.
So that was like in my teens. I didn't know what it was. And then when I really started, like trying to get stronger because I got into my late 30s, early 40s, and I was like, wait a second, my clothes are not fitting like I want them to. We must do something. Um, and so I started doing kickboxing, cardio kickboxing, and lifting weights.
Yes.
And then my clothes didn't fit in a different way. And I was like, what the freak? So I asked my trainer, I'm like, so what should I do? And she said, well, you need to lengthen out. I said, what do you mean? Like that
Mm-hmm.
sounded like some medieval thing where they, ratchet you up. I said, how do I do that? And she said, Pilates. So I was at Sport and Health
Okay.
in Arlington, which it's not there anymore. And they had Pilates. So I call it box Pilates, box training Pilates.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, and I did that twice a week. And my goal was really to move as elegantly and effortlessly as the people that I saw taking Pilates.
Okay.
And that was my goal. I'm like, I want to move like that.
With
I know
grace.
that exactly, which is my tagline, better living through strength and grace. That's my tagline.
Yes.
And so, I move like an athlete mostly, but I wanted to move like them. And every class I would come out and I was like, crap, I didn't quite do it. You hear the carriage bang, or you hear, you drop the strap. I didn't get the transition straight. And that happens to this day. But, but I mean, so it was a way to help lengthen me out. And then I got hurt again, overzealous personal trainer, and I couldn't do squats. I couldn't do lunges. And I'm like, I have to be able to do these things or else other things will be untoward. And so I found that I could do squats and lunges, ta-da, on the reformer with, standing springs and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So this last iteration of Pilates, but none of it was mat. Let me just throw that in there because that's kind of important to the story. None of it was mat. Matt and I have a love-hate relationship. My client and I both, we have this love-hate relationship with Matt. And we have just decided that it's like vegetables. It's good for you, but we don't necessarily like it. But we do it because we know that it's good for you. And that if you don't do it, then you will suck on the reformer. So I come to the studio that I'm in now, and she warms me up she's like, I need you to get on the floor. I'm like, I didn't come here to get on the floor. I came to get on that's the reformer, right? That's what I want to do. And she was like, yeah, but you need to be able to do this. Okay, so we do this. Fast forward to my first certification, which was with Peak.
Okay.
I did not know that you couldn't get certified without getting your mat certification. No one told me that.
Yeah.
So I sit there and I'm like, she's like, okay, so we're going to get on the mat. We're going to do mat first. I was like, we're going to get on the floor? This is not what I signed up for.
I signed up for machines. Yeah.
I signed up for equipment. And she was like, no. And so then I had to learn that. But my, the studio owner is the one, bless her heart, Kim Kandra, who said, you know what? I need somebody. You have this background, being a long ago athlete. Would you consider getting your certification? I have a friend, and she's a teacher trainer. I can introduce you, see how it goes. So I did. That's kind of like how I got to be a teacher trainer. I was like, okay, well, I've always liked doing that sort of stuff. It's like coaching. It's like mentoring. And it could be, my retirement move. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of, but I just think that it's so funny. Like, I had no clue that I needed to know Matt, which now that I do, I find it interesting that there are trainings out there where it's like, they don't teach you Matt. You can learn reformer level 1, 2, and 3, and there's no Matt involved. And I'm like, How do you do that?
Yeah, exactly. No, I love the mat. The mat is so foundational. And like someone said last week, it's like everyone has a floor. Like, I mean, you may not have equipment, but like there's a ground. Like you can actually, it is more accessible than people think if you want to understand the work, right? And everything else assists you in that mat work. So, yeah, that's funny. It's interesting.
Oh, it was funny. I mean, I guess so. So at first I was upset
Mhm.
that I didn't know this and no one told me this, but then kind of like going back to what did my body need at the time and teaching the body in front of you, I was in a box gym, and what they were trying to do is to make sure that I could continue to do things like squats and lunges, and that I would not bulk up so much. So it wasn't really about, I would have benefited had they done that, but it wasn't really for them a big deal for me to know Matt and to know the order. They
Yes.
just taught me a couple of exercises. Hey, this will be for your hip flexor. This will be, so you won't be so.
Yes.
So
Right, right.
I got over it after I understood it. But yeah.
Mhm. But yeah, and that's interesting. We definitely need to do another conversation because that's a whole separate tangent about. Yes, we could do that. Yes. Yeah, because that's a 57 minutes. Like that was super fast.
Yeah, it did go fast.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Eshael. Like I really enjoyed this chat.
I appreciate you inviting me. I'm glad you circled back because I was like, are you sure that you really you want to chat with me? Because you got some heavy hitters, yourself included. But I saw
Yeah.
Sean last week and um you know BGPI and Sonia and
Yeah.
company, and I'm just like Maria, and I'm like, whew, okay. So
Yes.
I'm like, I am in like stratified air here, rarefied air.
Hmm.
So I appreciate you inviting me.
My pleasure. That's the whole point, right? Like we're all superheroes, right? Like you have people who idolize you for what you've done in their world, and it doesn't matter who we are. We all have that same level of impact on other people's lives. So yes, so
So
good.
we'll keep in touch because I still
Yes.
have other questions. So I'll
All
just
right.
see you.
Sounds good. All right. Thank
Thank
you so much. Okay. Take
you.
care. Bye.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a good
Thank
week.
you.
Bye bye.